Howdy folks, this is the Sheetrock Ninja. I'm here to show you today a couple of tips about taping. There's nothing serious about it. It's real simple, it's real easy. And if you have a lot of small projects that you have set off simply because you might think that it's a big task, it's really not a big task. And I use two different kind of tapes. This is what I use for corners, and this is what I use for my flats. But I'm going to show y'all the difference and time-wise how using your fiber tape is better than your paper tape. And so in your sheetrock you have a bevel, and that bevel you can put your knife on it and you'll see that there's space right here, and that gets your mud and stuff. So I'm going to show you real quick. What I do is, step one, if you're just running your regular tape, this is easy. Step one is right here. That's step one of fiber tape. Step one. Let me show you the difference between the fiber tape and the paper tape. On the paper tape, you have to mix you up some mud. When it comes to mud, it's good that you mix your mud up first. Sometimes you got to put a little bit of water with it. I've already mixed my mud. It doesn't need, and it didn't need any water in it at all. So I want to show you the difference between paper tape versus fiber tape. When it comes to paper tape, you're gonna have to take your mud, and you're gonna have to put you a bed on it. You're gonna have to put this mud down with your paper tape. You have to make sure that your gray is covered, or your paper tape won't stick. Make sure that the gray is covered. You just put that mud inside that bevel. If you have anything like that, it's best to just knock it out. Which I usually bed with the 8-inch knife. Remember, fiber tape, I just stuck it to the wall. Paper tape, I had to mud it first. Paper tape, I'll stick right there in the center. I run it down. That's my paper tape. I'll take it, run my paper tape down. You got to make sure it's smooth and it's all the way down. Now when you're paper taping, you have to remember that if the gray on the wallboard is not covered with mud, your paper tape will not stick. When this dries, if it does not stick, you'll see it the first thing in the morning if you let it sit for a day. That's the whole thing about paper taping. You're gonna have to let it sit overnight. Depending on the humidity, where you're at, this could dry in just a matter of hours. Some people put another coat on top of this after they run it. I don't suggest that. I suggest that if you're a first timer and you want to use your paper tape, do it like this, but you got to make sure the gray's covered, because if the gray's not covered, the tape is not gonna stick, period. It'll buck up. So when this mud starts to shrink, tomorrow, wherever the mud is not behind this tape, when this mud shrinks, it'll have a bubble in this tape, and that's just telling you that there's no mud behind it. If you go ahead and mud over this right now, I've seen it done, and the paper was to buck because there's nothing under it, then you're gonna have to scratch that out and put you some mud up under it. For you first timers, you got a project, I suggest you don't use paper tape. I use paper tape in corners. That's a big difference. Right there, that's how you do that. Paper tape, I had to mud it, put the tape on it. The fiber tape, I just stuck it down. Now you see the paper tape right here. You see it. You know you're gonna have to cover it. The fiber tape, got a bubble in the tape. If you do have a bubble in your tape, you can pull it. You can see with the fiber tape, I'm covering it. Let me give me some more mud in my pan. I use a 6-inch, a 8-inch, a 10, and a 12. That's it. You don't see no paper tape. You see paper tape here. You don't see no tape at all here. For you folks that have a small project and you want to make it happen, I suggest that you use the mesh tape. I have good results with it. That's bedding. This is just taping. This is not bedding. So I've done tape and bedded here with the fiber tape. Here, I've only taped. It's not bedded at all. This is. If you have a project that you feel like it's going to take you too long, I use Durabond 45. If you have a small project, the Durabond 45, what it does is it dries pretty quick, and basically when you get most of all that you got to do, once you have it mudded, then with the Durabond, then you basically can come right back over it and you can go ahead and skim coat that. So most of the time, 2 coats. When I use the fiber tape, I can come right behind this, hit it one more time with my compound. It's ready to sand, it's ready to paint. It is possible to make this happen with taping with the fiber tape, bedding it, coming right behind it, skim coating it, and it's ready for paint. This here, you're gonna have to let this tape dry. Then you're gonna come back, and I'll just show you a lot of times when you just come back with it. Look at here. You see that bubble? That's a bubble in the tape. That's what happens when you tape and you go right behind it. It's already pulled it up. That's what you don't want to do. If you're taping, you want to leave it alone. If you're using regular tape, you want to leave it alone, because you have mud out here that when the mud begins to dry, because there is something under it now, which is the tape, it'll actually pull that tape. It may not pull all of it, but it'll pull that tape off. It'll pull the tape off. So I don't do it. But you could come back, once it's dry, you can come back and you can hit it and you can cover that tape, just like that. But then you're gonna have to come back, because I can already see a tape line, which I know it's wet. When it dries, you won't see it. But I can already see the tape line. Most of the time, when you do this, most of the time you do have to put a third coat on it. Most of the time you have to third coat it. But when you're taping with paper tape, you have to let the mud in behind the tape dry. It pulls it into the groove. It pulls it into the bevel. You have to let it dry. Now I can show you real quick with Durabond. If you had Durabond, you could run your tape and with Durabond, I'd be real careful, because you have to, your Durabond, the thing about running Durabond is your Durabond, it's a harder compound. And I'm here to tell you, it's hard to sand. If you're not smooth with your Durabond, you can have a hard time sanding. And then that might require you to just say, hey, you know what? I can't sand this down. I'm gonna have to bust it wider. These seams, you don't have to bust them this wide. If you use the fiber tape, it is embedded from this point to this point in the bevel. It's already embedded. It's already down. So if I take my 8-inch knife or my 12-inch knife, you'll see that now that first coat is flush to the surface of the wallboard. It's flush. You want your finishing, you want what you finish to be flush with the wallboard, so it's smooth. You don't want humps in it, and when you bust them, you have humps in it. When you bust them out 12 and 12, you have humps. I'm a lightweight finisher, and I'm showing you that this is the easiest way that you could do it, and you don't have to put a lot of mud on these seams. You don't have to. Once again, you can see right there that my finish coat. So when I come back and hit this again tomorrow, then I'll use my 12-inch knife or my 10, and I'll bust it just a little bit, and it'll be from the part that you see here. I'll feather out my next coat roughly this far, and it'll be real smooth. I'll feather it out. The only thing that I'm building up is where the mud will actually shrink. And so it's gonna shrink, and then you're gonna have an indention. That's fine. That's telling you that you're doing it right. And then when I come back with my 12 or my 10, when I feather that down, what I'm doing is I'm filling in where the mud shrink a little bit, and it's got this in it, so I'm filling it up back to basically the same point, but I'm going just a little further. And if you're real light with your finishing, then when you sand it, you're gonna have a smooth surface. You're not gonna sand it and fill any of this. it's gonna be a smooth finish. It's not gonna be like this. That's the difference between fiber tape and regular drywall tape.